In this video, I'll share some tips on how you can step up your wildlife photography game. Many of these tips are used by pro wildlife photographers. If you sometimes miss the crucial shot, your photo doesn't look the way you thought it should look, then maybe there's one of these tips that you are not using. So why don't we have a look? My name is Peter Bradeldam and I'm a nature photographer. Follow along as I share my hard-earned lessons in wildlife and landscape photography. Now, I normally shoot a burst of shots, and I do this no matter whether I'm hand-holding the camera or I'm using a tripod. And it's great for tracking shots where you follow a subject, and also if the subject is a little far away. You will notice that some of these shots are sharper than others. Now, because I started out in landscape photography, I had this habit of just taking a single shot at a time. And once I started in wildlife photography, I carried over that bad habit of just taking a single shot. And also, if you come from a DSLR camera and switch to mirrorless mode, you might have to change your way of shooting, because in a DSLR camera there's a little bit of noise and this can startle off animals, whereas mirrorless cameras are completely silent, or at least they have a silent mode, all of them, I think, I hope. But you have to change your habits maybe to adjust this and not just take a single shot at a time. Once I started shooting in burst mode, my photos improved drastically, or the number of shots that were sharp went up. Also, because you get more shots of the same action, then you got a better chance of nailing that special gesture that tells a story. Now, there's one thing that will help you when you got that beautiful magical light, that you also get home with shots to show it. Often when a shot is correctly exposed according to your camera, your photos will not look that great or that magical as we saw it. But there's a way to actually make light play a bigger role in your photography. If you have this side-lit or backlit subjects, and if you then underexpose one stop or two stop, then most or a larger part of the image will fall into shadows. But the crucial point is that your subjects, or the lights hitting your subject, will be well exposed and making that rim light more visible. And this is actually what gives the image that special touch or that magical feeling. So by just underexposing one or two stops, you can carry that magical experience you had in the field right into your photo. And this is especially true if you combine it with a darker background. Maybe you can even catch the lights illuminating the breadth of your subjects. Now, that's an extra bonus about underexposing your image a bit, especially if you use manual mode with auto ISO, because this means that the camera will automatically use a little bit lower ISO, leaving you less noise in the image. Now, the next tip is also about light and the ISO. In low light situations, if you progressively, one step at a time, try to shoot with a lower shutter speed, again, I'm talking about manual mode with auto ISO, once you nail that safe shot of, let's say, a squirrel in a tree, then when you got the safe shot, try to use slower and slower shutter speeds and see what you can get away with, because this helps you get a lower and lower ISO. And That was a buzzard just flying through the forest right in front of me, right 20 meters or something. It was completely silent. Whew. Amazing. Anyway, when you can still get a few sharp shots, try to lower the shutter speed even further and see what you can get away with. By the way, if you enjoy this video or feel that you have learned something, consider giving it a like and maybe even sharing it with your friends or subscribing to the channel. Anyway, once you've done that, let's move on. Being able to quickly switch between focus mode is the difference between getting a shot and missing it. I suggest that you set up your function buttons so that you can switch focus modes without taking the eye away from the viewfinder. The way I set it up on my Nikon Z6 II camera is that the function button 1 is used for switching to 3D tracking, and function button 2 is set to switching between the different autofocus modes. On the Nikon Z8, I'm still experimenting a bit with how to use the specific custom buttons. So right now I have it set to the record button is used for switching between the different focus modes, and function button 1 is used for instantly, no matter what focus mode you're in, it overrides it and switches to auto area. It works pretty well for me. And the function button 2 is used for switching between full frame and crop mode. But I think you should try to experiment with which kind of button assignment that works for you, because we all shoot in a different way. But the point is, use the function buttons. They are such a great help, and the more you can use buttons, the less you have to go into menus and change things, because this takes time and this makes you lose a crucial shot. Now, wouldn't it be great if there's an almost fail-safe way of nailing the exposure? Well, there is. I know not every photographer likes this way of shooting, but in my opinion, it's about taking control of the settings that are crucial and forgetting about the rest. Instead of letting the camera decide on how much movement blur you get in your shots, if you shoot in aperture priority mode, or letting the camera decide how much depth of field you get in shutter speed priority, I suggest shooting in manual mode so you control these two and let the camera decide on the ISO. No matter what ISO you want to get the shot. That's my opinion anyway. But feel free to use whatever mode you're comfortable with. I just urge you to think a little about it, whether it's the best way of shooting the mode you're currently using, and try to experiment with another mode if it makes sense to you. I've shot with manual mode and using auto ISO for ever since I started in photography, and for me it works fantastic. You need to think a little bit about the shutter speed, but I take an assessment of the subject, the animal I'm targeting, and if it's still moving, I'll keep the shutter speed between 1/200th of a second to maybe 1/500th of a second. If it's faster moving, then I'll bump it up to 1/800th, or if it's a bird in flight, then 1/2000th, so that ballpark anyway. But that's actually all you have to consider about it. And then the only issue you get when you're back home at the computer is the noise, and you can deal with that. You can't deal with motion blur in many cases anyway. It's getting colder. I think we have only 3 or 4 degrees Celsius at the moment, so it's a bit chilly. So let's move on. And that's one thing that saved me in so many situations from missing the focus. It doesn't work every time, as we can't predict animal behavior or its movement. However, if you approximately think you know where your subject will appear, try to pre-focus and help the lens in this way faster acquire the correct focus. And on some lenses you can actually like save the focus position, and then you have a function button that records the focus position. So once you've like set the focus to a particular tree in the distance around where the subject will appear, then you can actually focus on whatever you like. And if the subject appears at approximately that same distance, you can quickly press the recall button and the focus will jump to that ballpark, or that precise point actually, but then you're in the ballpark of what you need. This helps you avoid a lot of focus hunting that some lenses unfortunately do, and this causes you to miss a great deal of shots. At least that's what I've experienced. It also depends on the camera, of course, but pre-focusing helps a lot in some situations, especially if you're in a hide or something like that, and if you have a set up a perch or feeding station, then you know where the subjects will be, and this is a tremendous help in that way. Now, there are so many other tips and hacks that you can use to improve your wildlife photography, and actually most of them don't require that you buy new gear, and you'll find several of these tips in this video up here. So I suggest you jump over there and take a look, and that's all I have for you today. So see you in the next video.